Morning, everyone. So with that, we'll start today's hearing. So good morning. My name is Brandon Carino with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's Division of Water Supply and Geoscience, and I will be serving as today's hearing officer. Welcome to today's public hearing, which was scheduled to consider the developing drought conditions, the effect of water supplies throughout the state, and the possibility of a drought warning designation for affected regions of New Jersey. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded, and we would suggest turning off your camera until such time as you are ready to provide comment. Today's public hearing comes following several months of below normal precipitation. Though there has been modest rainfall this week, little rain remains in the forecast. As such, there is a significant rainfall deficit across all of New Jersey, which has degraded water supply indicators and which has hampered the recovery of reservoir storage and groundwater reserves. Today's public hearing is being held in accordance with the Water Supply Allocation Permits Rules, NJAC 7:19-1 at SEEK, which enable the DEP, following designation of a drought warning condition in any area or the state as a whole, to direct a variety of supply-side measures that aim to avert or lessen the severity of an impending water supply emergency. Such measures include temporary modification of water allocation permits, i.e. passing flow modifications or reservoir releases, development of alternative water supplies where possible, interconnection tests by public water systems, bulk transfers of water between water systems, and any other modifications or measures deemed appropriate to ensure adequate water supply. A public notice to announce this public hearing was announced through a DEP press release issued on November 26, 2025. Notice of the hearing was also posted on the NJDEP's main website, as well as its dedicated drought-related webpage, dep.nj.gov/drought. This hearing is being recorded and will be posted on the DEP's website for future reference. This public hearing provides an opportunity for the DEP to present a summary of climate and water supply conditions and shall serve as the basis and background to underscore our concern over developing drought conditions and their effect on regional and statewide water supplies. The hearing will also allow interested persons to provide comments on the current water supply situation and offer input concerning appropriate management measures. We ask that testimony be limited to the direct subject matter of this hearing, namely the precipitation deficit, demands, the effect of drought conditions on available water supplies, and possible water supply options to address such conditions. Following the presentations, interested attendees should use the raise hand functions in Teams to indicate their interest to speak. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes so that all that are interested will be afforded an opportunity to speak. I would also like to point out that written comments submitted via email will be accepted for the remainder of the day for those who are submitting written testimony. I ask for your consideration to please keep your oral comments brief so that all may be heard. If there is time after all attendees who have indicated an interest in speaking, we may circle back to provide additional time to speakers who ran out of time prior. Please note that DEP staff will not be addressing specific technical questions during this hearing. However, all feedback will be considered as a component of implementation of a declared drought warning. With that, we are going to begin today's hearing. At this time, I'd like to introduce Steve Domber, the New Jersey State Geologist with the New Jersey Geological and Water Survey, and Dr. Dave Robinson, New Jersey State Climatologist, who will summarize the state status of the water supply and climatic conditions which have brought us to this point. So, Steve, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, coming through.
Okay, great. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this very important subject matter. As Brandon mentioned, we'll have the agenda here. We'll walk through how we generally manage drought in New Jersey. We'll look at our drinking water supply indicators and the status of those. We'll turn it over to Dave Robinson, State Climatologist, to talk about some of the climatic conditions and outlook. Turn back to where we are and next steps, and then lastly, turn it over to you, the public, for comment for us to consider as part of this hearing. So generally, drought management in New Jersey, how does the state think about it? This is an evolving process. We continually adapt and modify our process, but a lot of this, those of you who follow this should sound familiar. This is very similar. This sort of current way of thinking came out of the 2000 drought, and we've been sort of implementing and adjusting it ever since. So we look at water supply conditions on a weekly basis, whether it's raining or dry. We update these indicators every week. We evaluate water supply drought, not meteorological or agricultural drought. That's why sometimes when you see the U.S. Drought Monitor maps on the internet or on news postings, they look a little different than ours. We are really focused on water supply droughts only. We look back 90 days at precipitation and stream flow and look at how those trends over the last 90 days compare to historical trends. And then we also consider long-term average for water supply reservoir storage and unconfined groundwater levels. And that really encompasses the breadth of water supply sources in New Jersey. Just a quick reference to some of our authorities that we're working under here. The Water Supply Management Act and the Water Supply Management Act rules are referenced there. And if you would like more information on drought monitoring, responding to water emergencies, and water use and water availability, I would direct you to the 2024 Water Supply Plan, as well as a story map that goes with it. There's a lot of good information and detailed information, more so than we could ever cover today on drought and water availability in New Jersey. Okay, we'll take a look at our current drinking water supply indicators. So statewide, as Brandon mentioned, and Dave will say, I'm sure, 2025 has been warm and dry. Since July, precipitation has been below average. If you recall, we had a wet May, and it's been dry ever since. And really 13 of the last 15 months have seen below average precipitation. That's really what's driving this discussion here today, is a lack of precipitation. Additionally, temperatures across most of New Jersey have been above average for 7 of the last 8 months. And all of these have combined to reduce and make stream flow, groundwater, reservoir levels dry or low. And what you're seeing here on the right side is our drought indicator stoplight figure, with each row being a drought region, one of the 6 drought regions, and then each one of those columns with a stoplight being a water supply condition. So precipitation, groundwater, stream flow, reservoirs. And really, it's very simple. You know, the darker the reds, the oranges are bad or dry, severely dry and extremely dry. The yellows are moderately dry, and the greens are, you know, average or above average, right? So we see a lot of reds and oranges across the state. And so, you know, it's been dry. This is very similar to where we were last October, November, when we entered the most recent drought warning. And because of these overall dry conditions, really, on October 1st, we entered a statewide drought watch. And that's reflected on the indicator status on the far right of this figure. Reservoirs, a big source of water for a lot of our urban populations. And so here we're showing 3 regions, the combined storage for each one of these reservoir systems. So in the top center, you have the combined Northeast reservoir storage. So that's North Jersey District, Newark, Jersey City, and Veolia in the Bergen County area. And just so you understand these graphs here, the gray lines and the yellow dots are long-term average storages. June 1st on the x-axis to May 31st, and then 0 empty to 110% full on the vertical axis. So again, the gray line is historic average. The blue line is where we were last year. And then the red dots are where we are this year. So you can see up in the Northeast, reservoir storage is well below where we were last year. We were in a drought warning or close to a drought warning at this time last year. So you can see that we are well below combined storages where we were last year and well below long-term averages. On the left side here is the coastal north region. As you may recall, Manasquan Reservoir had some really dramatic shots of exposed reservoir bed and dead trees. The rain that we did get in New Jersey that Brandon mentioned has been really primarily focused along the coast. And so those reservoirs are actually better off than last year, but still below long-term averages. So it's still of concern and why we're mentioning it here today. And then on the bottom right is Round Valley Spruce Run, the central part of the state. You can see that those reservoirs, again, are below long-term averages and fairly, maybe slightly below where we were this time last year. So again, the big picture here is overall dry, below average, in some cases worse than last year, some cases better, but well, you know, we're dry. It's been dry and the reservoirs are reflecting that condition. Okay, recently in October, I believe the 24th, we sent out a survey to our water purveyors to get a pulse of them and how they think the conditions are. And so went to about 580 community water systems on October 24th. 64 responses, which is typically pretty good for us, from a mix of, you know, large and small systems, surface water, groundwater, as well as regional here. And this question here we're showing is your average demands for this time of year, or what are your demands like for this time of year? So this is in the fall. So remember that the peak demands, the highest demands in general are over the summer, and then they tail off in the fall and winter. So overall demands are typically lower than peaks over the summer. And what the purveyors reported is the vast majority of them, it's 85%. So we're seeing average demands. So they're in the normal range, but yet supplies are low. So really precip driven, you know, precip deficit driven drought. A couple are high, a couple are low. and 14% had reported some sort of mandatory water conservation measures that they had enacted on their own. So again, it's been dry. However, demands are fairly normal for this time of year. All right, at this point, I will turn it over to state climatologist Dave Robinson. Let me stop sharing here.
Okay. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Steve. I will now share, and hopefully you can see coming through. I saw a thumbs up from Brandon.
Yeah, looking
Great.
good, Dave.
Great. Thanks for inviting me to participate in this hearing this morning. I want to give you an overview more from the meteorologic, climatologic side, particularly focusing on precipitation. Let me advance. Just the goal here, as I said, it's evaluate the atmospheric regime, focusing on precipitation, looking at times over the last month, the last season, and even going back to September of 2024, when things really started drying out in what was an exceptionally dry, record dry fall of 2024. We didn't see quite those conditions this year, but as Steve mentioned earlier, and you'll see in a minute, 13 of the last 15 months have had below normal precipitation across New Jersey. And then we'll take a little bit of look ahead at National Weather Service outlook for this winter and what it might bring us precipitation-wise. This figure is very familiar to many. It can be found updated monthly on the state climate webpage, except this one's a little bit different. The website, we go back 12 months and look at precipitation departures, and you'll see temperature departures in a subsequent figure. The red bars are months going back to September 2024 on your left, with below average precipitation based on the 1991 to 2020 normals established by the National Centers for Environmental Information. The larger the red bar, the greater the deficit. As you can see last fall, 3-4 inch deficits in September and October. If one of these months or seasons falls within the top 10, going back statewide till 1895, we annotate it in the figure. So you can see we haven't made the top 10 since last May when we had the 7th wettest May. But you'll notice we really got going with this persistent drought. Brandon mentioned developing drought. I might even add that this is a continuing drought situation. We had a respite there, thank goodness, in May. July performed pretty well precipitation-wise. And I should note that it's a preliminary value for this past November, but it's going to come in pretty close to that deficit. So summing it all up, going back 15 months, New Jersey is 15.54 inches below normal in the precipitation department. That's akin to about 4 months missing precipitation over that time, or roughly three quarters of average precipitation. That may not seem like a lot, perhaps in a month, although that's notable, but when you put it over 15 months, that's quite a deficit. Just through mentioned temperatures, Steve brought that up, and you can see how warm we've been over this time period, particularly focus on the summer season with the red bars being above normal. And you can see a lot of top 10 values in there, because focusing on the summer, you see evaporation is greater under warmer conditions, putting more of a stress on our water supply. Recently, the fall was on the warm side, tentatively the 18th warmest fall in the last 131 years. But we have a little bit of concern in our office where the November value is going to come out. Some indicate it might actually drop a little bit below average, but it's going to be a close to average month temperature-wise. I should also point out August. We were really fortunate in some respects that August had below average temperatures, which reduced the demand for water. I would imagine, I can't cite that chapter and verse, but it certainly kept evaporation fluxes down somewhat. The two maps here look at precipitation for the last 30 days on the left and the last 90 days on the right. These are in inches. You can see at the bottom of each map. And you can see that these values are below average. So we're not looking at averages here, but you can see where it's been a little more plentiful than elsewhere, that being the coastal area, the aforementioned coastal area into the Pinelands. And you can also note that the northwest corner of the state has been particularly dry the last month. Going back the last 90 days on the right, you can see it is an east-west look. Steve mentioned how the coast fared better during the fall season, whereas the Delaware Valley and across northern New Jersey was considerably worse off. Looking cumulatively now at precipitation, we're back to 15 months now. You can see that the north is doing a little bit worse at the Wanacue-Raymond Dam there, co-op station for the National Weather Service, compared to New Brunswick and Central Jersey and Atlantic City. But cumulatively, you can see the precipitation over those 15 months has been in the low 40s to 50 range. But now we'll look specifically at each of those regions, starting up in Passaic County in North Jersey in the Highlands. The top figure shows you that 15 months. The brown line is the cumulative average precipitation during that time, which should be expected. The green line is what actually occurred. Should note that the ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch to fill the other day, those records weren't available yesterday when I put this figure together. So we're going to be a tad above that, actually through December 3rd, but still about 70% of normal up north for those 15 months. Going back to just the beginning of summer this year, about 62% of normal. Going to central New Jersey, still well below normal, 77% of normal going back 15 months, and going back to the start of this summer, about 78% of normal. So same for both those periods. And finally, looking to South Jersey, the Atlantic City Airport in Pomona, you can see a deficit of 12% below normal over the last 15 months, but actually just about dead on normal for the last half of this year, plus the last 6 months or so. Looking at it another way, and I realize I'm going quickly through these, be happy to share these slides. I don't know if they'll be available to everyone after this hearing anyway. But you can look at the percent of normal precipitation, not in inches, but in percent. 90 days, 180, and 365 days. And again, you'll pick out that the coastal region is doing a little better with the lack of, with the gray color and the green showing about normal, a little above. Again, the Northwest and down the Delaware Valley looking worse in the 90-day period and the 180-day period, and the North looking a little bit worse than elsewhere when we look back an entire year. Looking back at departures, now we're looking at the actual departures in inches of precipitation for the last 180 and the last 365 days. And you can really see departures from normal precipitation exceed a foot in portions of the highlands for the last 180 days. And going back 365 days, the color coding is a little bit different. So those oranges there are, again, 12 to 16 inches or more below average, but most of the state experiencing precipitation departures over 6 and 12-month period. The drought monitor was mentioned earlier. I put in 2 of the drought monitor maps for New Jersey that we contribute in the state office. Within DEP and within the National Weather Service, we meet each beginning of each week and make a recommendation to the National Drought Monitor author of where we believe New Jersey should sit in terms of those 6 drought categories there, either none or abnormally dry or ramping up to exceptional drought conditions. And you can see where we were at the just before the drought watch was instituted for the state, where the north dominated and even some of the coast and southwest. And you can see where we are as of this morning. This map was released at 8:30 this morning, but it's based on data through 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. On no, it's 7. We're in daylight. We're out of daylight savings time. 7 a.m. on Tuesday. So it doesn't include the rain and snow that fell on the morning and afternoon 2 days ago. But you can see that the conditions have ramped up considerably, particularly in the Northwest. Even the Southwest is getting into a drought situation that we only see about once every 10 or 20 years. The abnormally dry yellow is something every 3 to 5 years. So there is the range. We're not in an extreme or exceptional drought position at this point. Just for reference, on the left is this morning's map focusing on the Northeast, and you can see scattered areas of drought. They're actually recovering from drought up in northern New York and portions of New England. They were much worse off a month or several months ago. So they've seen more precipitation, but are still have drought concerns. Whereas you can see the scattered drought concerns in the southern part of this region. And just to put it in full context, there you can see the scattering of drought conditions across the U.S. as of this week. Looking ahead for the National Weather Service on the 20th of November, it's the last time they've issued a monthly and seasonal outlooks. On the left, you can see the December outlook for temperature on the left of there and precipitation on the right. These are in percentiles, so where things may lean. And you can see for New Jersey in December, some leaning to the south being on a little bit on the warm side, the rest of the state kind of equal chances of being in the lower, middle, or upper third compared to historic records. So not much of a call. And on the right, you can see some leaning towards most of the state, perhaps having some above normal precipitation this month. We got off to a good start this week. And yes, there was more up to our north, mostly in the form of snow in New York and New England. This looks somewhat similar to the right, which is the December through March outlook. Only difference is it brings some drier conditions potentially into southern Jersey and kind of a no call, if you will, for the rest of the state. And for temperature, above normal temperatures. This is very similar, you may recall, to what we saw this time last year for the winter outlook of 24-25. It is very typical of La Nina conditions, part of the El Nino Southern Oscillation pattern. There's El Nino and La Nina are kind of extremes of one another. And La Nina conditions tend to bring fewer storms up the East Coast, with more of a storm track through the Great Lakes, which we've seen in the last week or two. So dry southern tier states up the East Coast somewhat, a wetter Ohio Valley and northern plains and into the Pacific Northwest, colder conditions in the Northwest and northern plains, and warmer conditions throughout the southern tier states and somewhat up the East Coast. That's the leaning of the National Weather Service as they saw it 2 weeks ago. There'll be another outlook in about 2 weeks. So to sum up, precipitation over the last has been about 3/4 of normal over the past 15 months. 13 of the 15 months have been below normal. North Jersey has experienced the driest of these conditions, and currently northern and western areas are driest. And then I just summed up what the National Weather Service had to think about not only this month, but in particular the winter season. Not hopeless that we see precipitation. They're not calling for exceptionally dry conditions, but certainly they're not leaning towards anything favoring major recovery of precipitation and excessive precipitation at that. So with that, I will stop sharing and thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, Dave. Steve, if you want to give your last couple slides.
Yes. I think I just need Dave to stop sharing his screen. Okay. Let me just jump ahead to where we left off. Apologies for the clicking. Okay. As was mentioned, we are in a drought watch that was issued on October 1st. And Drought Watch is really sort of an informational, gearing up kind of condition. We do a lot of emphasis on voluntary conservation, public awareness, a lot of social media posts, weekly updates on the webpage. Some sort of news clips and other items that can be used. We encourage everyone, as always, to sort of amplify our social media where available. But it's really it's a watch condition, right? It's truly a watch. But since October 1st, conditions have continued to deteriorate. Yes, we've had a little bit of rain, but it has been dry. It's been dry for a period of time. I would also add that winter droughts are always a little tricky, sneaky, in the sense that you don't see hot weather, you don't see dry lawns, you don't see dead leaves on trees. But lack of precipitation in the winter, if it continues, means that you start the spring off fairly dry when the peak demands start hitting. And so we like to have our reservoirs full, our aquifers full, our streams full over the winter. That's a good time for them to recover. And so winter droughts are always of concern. And because those conditions have continued, the precipitation has continued to be low, we are thinking about drought warning, our potential next steps. And that is why we are here today speaking with you and looking to hear from you as well, too. So what could be next? Could be nothing. Could be no action, but we could also decide to proceed to a drought warning. And that would be a commissioner administrative order that would potentially allow modifications to passing flows or reservoir releases. Could require leak detections by water suppliers, require interconnection tests. It could provide discretion for water allocation permit diversion limits. That warning could be issued statewide or by region. And that warning, if it was issued, could stay in place for a while. It could be lessened or it could be worsened, with the worsening being the drought emergency, which is a governor-declared condition. We're not there yet by any means, but that is a potential next step. Or we could come out, and we could come out regionally, or we could come out statewide, depending upon local conditions. And then what you can do, we always ask for water conservation. It's always a good practice, whether it's wet or dry. It does a lot of benefits from conserving water. Amplify our social media posts. You can see on the right here, we have sort of a winter water conservation infographic. There's a QR code there. There's some drought outreach toolkits that give you tips on saving water, flyers, every drop counts campaigns, as well as a model ordinance for municipalities who are looking to institute some sort of more periodic or more local water conservation options for them as well too. That about wraps up our public presentation. Brandon, I'll turn it over to you for a teeing up of the public input process.
So thanks again, Steve and Dave. So at this point, our primary presentations have concluded. So now is the opportunity for members of the public who are interested in providing testimony, thoughts on the proceedings today, just to make sure that we can help keep track of everyone and give everyone a timely amount of time to speak. So you'll notice on the teams, there should be the raise hand feature. If you're interested in providing testimony, go ahead and click that. We'll be calling people in the order that the hands have been raised. Once we call upon you, you'd be able to unmute yourself, and you can offer your testimony. Again, we're offering folks 3 minutes to speak. I will share a timer on the screen so we can help keep track of times. And then once you've completed your speaking points, remember to return yourself to mute at that point in time. So let me get myself prepared. Oh, and as one final note, as this is a public hearing, the primary objective of the department is to gather information. So we won't be addressing specific technical questions at this point in time. However, all testimony and comments that have been submitted will be considered by the department as we consider next steps with regard to drought. All right. So with that, first speaker is Tim Eustace. You can go ahead and unmute and start when you're ready.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks everyone for being here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
The Wanacue Reservoir is at 38%. Total supply is 44%. I implore you to move to drought warning. I always ask that we do this before we get to this point. And that's my screed for this morning. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Next, Bob Keskis. Go ahead and
Good
unmute.
morning. Well, my name's Bob Keskis. I worked for DEP for 37 years, 25 of them in water supply planning. We're here again. It seems like we're here once a year now. We had a drought warning last year. We had a drought watch the year before, and we had a drought watch in 21. So 4 years in a row now, either in watch or warning. And that's telling us something. That's telling us what kind of choices we have to make. And one of the choices I think we have to start looking at and doing that rather quickly is demand. And I'm especially interested in the demand of lawn watering. For those who looks at some of this information in detail, if you look at how much water we use from our reservoirs and our surface water supplies and our aquifers, during the summer, we're up to 1 out of every 3 gallons is used for lawn irrigation. Some other outdoor activities, but mostly lawn irrigation. So 1 out of 3 gallons. And that's 1 out of 3 gallons that's missing right now. Now, that didn't recover. We didn't have enough rain. So we're still missing that 1 out of 3 gallons. And that's caused by a relatively small fraction of the population. If you look at the urban population, their winter to summer demand trend is hardly existing. It's per capita water demand goes from 60 to 69. We start looking at suburban winter summer differentials, and that goes from 70 to 90. So there's the suburban trend is higher, but it's been getting higher. We look at the larger lot residences, and we're seeing a significant increase from 100 gallons per capita per day to over 200 gallons per capita a day in the summer. And these are averages. So there are a smaller fraction of each one of these land groups that are using significant amounts of water. The larger the lot size it appears, the more affluent the homeowner is, the more water they're using. And I've seen cases of 1 out of every 2 gallons of water in the summer being used for irrigation. So here we are now.
Bob.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, just we reached 3 minutes there. We can circle back to you if you have more to add, but at least like move on to the next person since those 3 minutes have passed.
Okay, I'll chime in when we're ready.
All right, thanks, Bob. All right, next up, Brian Rowe. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi there. Thank you.
Morning.
So I believe Spruce Run is 32% or lower, and I'd like to also encourage you guys to go to the drought warning. It looks every day, it looks from my window, I can see it going down like another foot. So at like 100 feet, the shoreline's gone in the last couple months. It's getting worse and worse, right? So also please factor in, you know, fish and wildlife need that water as well. It's getting lower and lower, and the fish only have so much area to drink within. Yeah, so that's, and also please also factor like Spruce Run might be a little separate from Round Valley. I know you guys like to lump them a little bit together, but you know, the fish that live in Spruce Run aren't over in Round Valley. So okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Next up is Water Department. Sorry, I'm not sure which water department that might be.
All right. Hi, I'm TJ Darcy from Roxbury Township Water Department in Morris County. Just anecdotally, we have a couple wells that are usually artisanal wells, and since the last drought warning, they used to actually overflow and run at like negative feet for the static pressure or for the static levels. Since the last drought warning about a year and a half ago, they've been running down to 20, 30 feet. And they're not recovering at all. And these are wells that used to routinely overflow during a rainstorm. And that's just all I had. Like I said, just anecdotal evidence.
Great, thank you for sharing. Next up, Mara Tippett. Go ahead and unmute.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Mara Tippett. I serve as the Executive Director of Raritan Headwaters Association, the watershed organization for the Upper Raritan watershed, and the headwaters that supply drinking water for millions of New Jersey residents in source water area for Spruce Run and Round Valley. We support DEP's use of precautionary drought management. The headwater streams and groundwater aquifers in the Upper Raritan and the Highlands are the earliest indicators of statewide water supply stress, and many of our monitoring sites have shown sustained low flows and ecological stress to cold water fisheries and bedrock aquifers at 10 to 15 percentile levels during key periods. And these conditions emerged well before major reservoir systems showed deficits, which makes early warning really essential. So we urge the DEP to prioritize the source water protection in drought policy. Protecting the headwaters and forests and wetlands and recharge areas is the most cost-effective drought mitigation strategy available to the state. And as droughts become more frequent with climate change, protecting the places that store and release water naturally will reduce the need for future emergency restrictions. So RHA appreciates DEP's leadership and urges the department to move forward with a drought warning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mara. Next up, looks like Rich Calby. You can go ahead and unmute.
Thanks, Brandon. Can you hear me?
Yep, coming through.
Perfect. Good presentation by everybody. Thank you for having this hearing today because it's an important topic. I agree with some of the early speakers. I don't think we should wait, at least the state shouldn't wait too long to issue the next stage because before we know it, it'll be March. People will be blowing out their sprinklers, preparing to water their lawns, and that's really the driver here that we see in Ridgewood Waters area of Northwest Bergen County. And I think what will have the biggest effect on systems, into the spring and the summer, because outdoor water use is increasing at a level that I don't think was ever planned for. We've done a great job of saving water inside the home, but outside, the number of in-the-ground sprinklers has reached a level that you would never imagined. It's like the modern day equivalent of people getting central air conditioning in their homes. 20, 30 years ago, not everybody had it. Not everybody had irrigation, but now they all do. So we have to find a way statewide to take this on as the next initiative to get people to conserve. Because the issue with the climate, the issue of drought is just not going to go away. And I think overuse is a big part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Next, Elliot Ruga.
Good morning, Elliot Ruga, Policy and Communications Director at the New Jersey Highlands Coalition. And in our discussions with our member organizations, the average citizen is completely unaware that we're in a drought situation, and they're going about business as normal. And whatever the state can do to elevate the urgency to employ at least voluntary conservation would go a long way. There's no understanding that there's a drought, and elevating the status to warning could help, and at an earlier time, not at a later time. Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Go on to Mark Brooks.
Yes, I'm Mark Brooks, Executive Director, New Jersey Water Supply Authority. We maintain Round Valley and Spruce Run reservoirs. I'd just like to offer my support for declaration of a drought warning. The reduction in minimum passing flows certainly helps us, offers us a significant benefit when trying to refill the reservoirs. Even with the reduction last year, we did fall a little bit short from filling Round Valley and Spruce Run. So we definitely support the next step. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Any other first-time commenters? If you've had trouble, PS, you can unmute and PS, you can unmute and speak if you'd like to. PS,
Hello,
I'm
can
not.
you hear me?
Oh, I think you just came through there.
Okay. Three things. One, this reminiscent of, my name is Paul Shore, adjunct professor at New Jersey Institute of Technology and employee for about 41 years at DEP, and helped manage droughts from 1988 to 2001. Dave mentioned going back to 2000, and at that time it was a similar, very interesting pattern meteorologically, but also administratively. We were in the middle of a change of governorship and obviously changes of commissioners. So at that point in time, the Bradley Campbell became the governor, and Sean and the commissioner of DEP. I'm sorry, may have gotten that a little bit confused, but in any case, there's a transition period which puts more pressure on the staff because you're missing people at the upper levels as they transition out of government. The second thing is that the water quality issues on the Passaic River are remaining very critical. You can't lose a water supply because of too much nitrate, and therefore reducing passing flows has to consider that very carefully. Third point is that the transfer of water from the transfer of water from Central Jersey to Northeast New Jersey through Newark was negotiated in a contract, and that was critical to helping us move from 5 to 20 MGD every day, and keeping us out of, by a management process, keeping us out of drought warning as long as possible for some of the Northeast. Management by objectives set every week was a critical component of management. It was based on all the records that we had previously developed for reservoir storage and precipitation. Thank you very much. I did submit a statement going into further details, and hopefully that'll become part of the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next, we have Louise Yuschek. You can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, I'm just making a personal comment, but I've been very concerned about the Swimming River Reservoir and our water supply here in Monmouth County since about 1984, when there was an application to build something totally inappropriate on the reservoir. Now it's a county park, so we've been saved a number of times here by our county park system. But there are a few things that really concern me about this. We're looking at this from, to a certain extent, from a climate point of view. And my experience being on an environmental commission for a decade and also being a member representing the public on an oddball county government department for 18 years in Monmouth County. It was called the Water Resources Association. Has led me to look at this in a slightly different way. My concerns are not just climate change, but the fact that we are doing things now that are destructive of the watershed and our ability to recharge it, the amount, or with good water. We have so much development hitting us right now, and it's all pretty much in eastern Monmouth County in an area under New Jersey Water Supply's district, consumer base. And what has happened and is happening now is rapid development within some of the most critical areas of the watershed, with thousands of residential units going in absolutely adjacent to major stream corridors and with packaged treatment plants. We're going to be adding more PFAS to the reservoir, more for the water company to clean up. But in addition to that, we're also dealing with frustrating degree of grandfathering of applications for totally different usages than they originally were used for, and therefore not being reevaluated in terms of our current needs to provide base flow to the streams which feed our local reservoir, and and the fact that the public is utterly unaware, and the people on our local planning and zoning boards and mayors, they're not aware of what it takes to protect a reservoir. And in addition to that, we have the fact that the county is unaware. And when they don't hear anything from the water company, they assume that means that the water company approves of whatever development or decision it is that they are looking at. And this is aggravating what is obviously a climate situation as well. But these are things that we should be looking at differently and doing something about now to protect the future.
Thank you, Louise. All right, next we have Evelyn Murphy. Go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. I'm Evelyn C. Murphy, president of the League of Women Voters of Monmouth County, a nonpartisan public interest organization with some 300 members deeply concerned about the growing demands on our water supply and the degradation of the Swimming River Reservoir, which supplies over 300,000 people, approximately half of our county's population. I am here to add our voices in support of declaring a drought warning. And I will mention that Louise Yuschek, who just spoke, is one of our local experts on this area. And I simply want to add the League as a supporter for all of the reasons that she just mentioned. What we see is that for years, the Swimming River Reservoir never actually fills. And much of the former reservoir is now in trees or bare, maybe with grass. As water enters, the grasses decay and add to the eutrophication of the reservoir and to elements in the water that force New Jersey American to go to another processing chemical because chlorine was not doing the job. Water then is more expensive, and it may have elements in it that pure water supply to begin with may not have. And as Louise was mentioning, the demand problem is significant. And I'm concerned, we're concerned that looking at future demand, people are not recognizing the dramatic increase in high density residential developments that are being approved in various places in the county. This is going to cause major problems. And so we want to emphasize that we need a change to our development and planning patterns if we want to even protect the water supplies we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Evelyn. Anyone else who wishes to speak that may have had an issue with the raise hand function, whether you called in or otherwise having issues with technology? Just give that opportunity. Okay. So go back to the raise hands, those who wanted to continue speaking. Bob, you can go ahead.
Yes. As I was saying, we're in the position that we're in today, partially as a result of excessive water irrigation by a relatively small fraction of the population. And now we're going to face some consequences. We're going to be reducing the passing flows of our reservoirs. This is going to be causing ecological impacts that now are going to be impacting these affected streams for months to come. If the lack of rainfall continues, we're looking at a possibility of a drought emergency next summer. And there's a price to pay where the water quality is going to suffer in those streams. Passaic River is going to become more and more made up of wastewater. Ecological resources are going to suffer. And moving water around is going to be costly. It could cause drinking water quality problems when we're mixing water from one purveyor to another. We're going to see very, very low flows in our streams. And I would like to see some assessments of could this particular drought in the one in 24 been reduced if we could get some reductions in lawn irrigation. Let's get that out in the open to see what the effect is. I've never seen a study that said, okay, what happens if we reduce lawn irrigation by half? There's ways of doing it, reasonable ways of doing it. So I would like to see some of those types of studies. So I'll end it there. I appreciate the time I had to speak.
Thanks, Bob. TJ from Roxbury, do you have anything else to add or just still had your hand raised?
No, sorry.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay. Final call. Any additional thoughts or comments before we conclude this hearing?
Can I make one more comment?
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of people they don't understand the passing flow requirements that we currently have. Reservoir releases are extremely small as they currently are. They're generally set at what they call the 7Q10. That's a flow that in most natural streams that is equivalent to happening once a week for 10 years. The current reservoir passing flows release that flow day after day after day under normal conditions. Now we're gonna cut these, and probably we're gonna have a 3/4 cut, maybe close to a half a cut. So now we're gonna have, for extended period of time, stream flows that normally would occur in a natural stream 1 week for every 10 years. It's going to be occurring for months. And we may, things get rough, low rainfall during this winter and spring, we're going to probably cut that into half. So something that you see in 20 years for a week, we're going to be seeing for months at a time. Water quality is going to suffer. Aquatic systems are going to suffer. It's one of the things that most people aren't aware of, but I'm trying to make them aware of it today. So if we could slow down, delay these impacts by reducing outdoor water use, again, 1 out of every 3 gallons during the typical summer, 1 out of 2 gallons used for irrigation in some systems. I think we have to start focusing on that now. And I would like to see some assessments of what the positive effects are of reducing outdoor water use by a small slice of society. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sorry, it's muted. Any other final thoughts from those who haven't spoken yet? Jen?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there's a comment in the chat from Jim Palmer.
Jim, if you wanted to unmute and speak your comment, just so we have it. The Teams recording may not capture it fully. I'll just read it out loud. A comment from Jim Palmer. As a potential long-term solution for areas of the state that rely on groundwater for their water supply, has there been any thinking about implementing groundwater recharge from wastewater treatment plants? Our local wastewater treatment plant discharges into a stream, but there could be considerable benefit if the millions of gallons a day leaving wastewater treatment plants went back into the ground. So thank you, Jim, for your thought. Final thoughts from Louise Yuschak. You can unmute.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for having this hearing and to sort of reiterate our concern for a lack of awareness on the part of our decision makers as to what's really going on. So it's kind of like there's a knowledge gap. The people that are making land use decisions really don't fully understand what the water picture is. And while the water company alerts us users as to how we need to restrict use, etc., this is not something which penetrates to the people that are passing approval on sometimes extraordinarily dense applications for development, literally on the banks of our major feeder streams to the Swimming River Reservoir. And recently a situation happened where our county commissioners made a decision that most of us really questioned. And their response was, well, we didn't hear anything from the water company, so that means they approve. And I just add that as a caution here as we move forward with climate change. And also, unfortunately, we're moving forward on a local reservoir with much more imperviousness in areas where it doesn't belong. And this is partly due to other forces that have New Jersey pretty much in a tumble, but in terms of planning. But still, 20 years ago, we had a focus on watersheds. And now that has just seemed to completely evaporate at the local levels and at the county levels. And that's just a concern on my part. Thank you. Oh, and I do hope that you move to a drought warning. We are critical water supply area #1 here in Monmouth County still, and this would also be an opportunity to try to educate people and alert them. We have thousands of new residential units going in Fort Monmouth, in the Monmouth Mall. The Middletown is developing like crazy. 2 parking lots for the Monmouth Park racetrack are going to be units in hotel, and all of this, and there's more, 2 office parks, are all being converted to heavy residential use. And so the demand is going to increase. And once again, it seems as if we all ought to be looking at water. It's our most critical resource, and we have to protect it through the future. And part of it is making sure that we don't destroy our watershed. And about more than 10% imperviousness starts the downward trend on degradation. And one of the biggest feeder stream in Homedale is 15.6% impervious already. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Anyone else who had not spoken yet that cared to offer comment? Okay, so hearing and seeing none, I'd like to thank you all who provided comments today. The department will evaluate each of these comments as it evaluates next steps as it considers this important matter. Any additional written thoughts may be submitted to our email box, njdrought@dep.nj.gov. Following the conclusion of this hearing, we'll be working on getting a copy of the recording of this hearing posted to the department's website, as well as and we will distribute that recording as well as the slides that were presented earlier to those who had RSVP'd today, so they can review those at their own timing. So with that, I'll conclude this hearing. So thank you all for your attendance, and enjoy the rest of your Thursdays. Thank you.